Okay, so there has been a request for me to demonstrate the web page um, remote control plugin. The remote control plugin comes with two remotes. One is a WinForms app, and the other one is a web page. The web page is a little bit harder to set up because you need to be running a web server, a PHP-enabled web server, in order to run it. But it gives your players more flexibility because now they can connect using basically any device that has a web browser, which is pretty well everything. So let's go through that. So as you can see here, I've started Talespire. And right here, I am running the remote. This is the web page version of the remote. Okay, so we've got a fighter here, and for copyright to avoid copyright infringements, this is not Conan the Barbarian. This is going to be everybody's favorite John. You can use whatever name you like. I just like John. That's my standard go-to for all my samples. Okay, so now we've got John here. I'm going to throw in, let's say, a second character here. Um, let's scroll through that. And add a second character just to show that it's going to be affecting the one character, not the other. Tools. This is Jim. Okay, so basically what the remote control allows you to do is it allows you to manipulate um, minis in Talespire without actually having to have Talespire. So this is a great tool for um, a GM that wants to introduce his group to Talespire, but the players don't yet want to commit to Talespire. So the GM can have a version of Talespire, use whatever streaming software he or she likes to provide them a view of the Talespire screen. And then the users can use the remote to actually interact with that one version of Talespire without the players actually having to have Talespire. Now, obviously, this is definitely a very limited interaction. It is much better if your players actually have Talespire. But to kind of give them an introduction, that's what you can use this for. So first thing we want to do is, let's say I am controlling John the Conqueror. So I want to type here the name. That's how um, the remote control plugin and Talespire correspond by using the character name. So whatever I type here is going to determine which character it's going to interact with, and it must match exactly. So once I've got that, I can now start using the buttons here to manipulate the asset. So I will move left, and you can see I'm moving left. I can move right. Now, this is all in orientation to the screen. So if you rotate your view, that isn't going to align. So typically you'll want to have your camera facing the same way for these directions to be accurate. But yes, so you can see that I am able to now move the mini. I'm also able to rotate the mini. And I've got similar stuff for the camera. So I can move the camera, and I can zoom in and zoom out on the camera. Now, keep in mind that especially with the camera, if you're moving your own mini around, it's not really a concern because hopefully everybody will have their own mini that they're moving around. But the camera, it is a shared experience, right? Because your players don't have their own Talespire. They're not looking at their own view. They're looking at the one streamed view. So if a player moves the camera, he's moving it for everyone. And yes, if multiple players move the camera at the same time, it's just going to basically um, be a mess because it's going to keep moving the camera for both the players in whatever they select. So you can basically have players fighting over the camera. So best if you're using this technique is to have some kind of a method where the player says, "Okay, I'm moving the camera," and that way you'll avoid conflict. So we've got also some height adjustment here. At the moment, it doesn't actually trip the fly mode. It's something that might be added in the future, but yes, it still gives you the height, so you can use it as a fly. Same thing with the camera. You can shift the height of the camera. And then again, you can rotate the camera. Once again, I would, uh, consider that you probably don't want to rotate the camera because if you do, your directions then will be mixed up. It will still all work, but just your up, down, left, right is not going to be up, down, left, right. So that's the basic controls for the character and the camera. Now we do have some um, options here with that. One of them is by how much you want to move. So a 1.0 should be one tile, but if you want to, for whatever reason, you want your characters to move quickly, you can do that by adjusting the movement amount. The other thing that we have here is the checkbox for facing. You can see here. You can see the label here. Checkbox face moving direction. So if you can see right now, if I move to the right, for example, um, the character is still facing forward or down or whatever, but is moving right. If you check this now, when the character moves, you can see that the character's facing automatically adjusts to whatever direction he moved last, or she. We also have the rotate amount here. When we were doing the rotations, we saw that the rotation here was gradual. That's because we got 5% uh, rotation. If we were to set this, for example, to 45, we can now rotate by a different amount. We also have a default zoom level. So if you've zoomed in crazy like that, you can do a set for the default zoom level, and whatever zoom level you've got here is what it's going to be setting that to. So um, this is a good feature if you've zoomed in too far or zoomed too far out. Instead of clicking this a whole bunch of times, you can just set whatever zoom level you want um, and hit the set, and it will zoom in. Again, keep in mind all of the camera actions are common to all the players, so you're zooming not only for yourself but for others. So one of the more recent features that we have is when you are moving, there is a selection for a different movement style. The default is kind of a teleport, so you can see that when I move, there is no real transition. Oops, didn't want to do that. Um, there is no real transition. It's kind of a teleport from where you were to whatever tile you're going to. So we have different modes of movement. These are the ones that come with the plugin, but it is actually fairly easy to create your own movement styles. So if you're interested in adding some additional ones, you can do that. So if we do a slide, we can now see that when we move, it is a transition slowly sliding the mini from the starting tile to the destination tile. Okay. Then we've got the lift and slide. The lift and slide is very similar, but it slightly lifts the asset as you're dragging it across to make it more obvious that it is being moved. We've got the hop. The hop is trying to emulate kind of what the Talespire movement is. It's not an exact match, but it's a rough approximation. um, and then as a bonus, we've got the drunk. The drunk moves in the direction indicated, but he's all wobbly, going side to side as he or she walks. Yeah, so those are the different walk animation styles. Again, those are the ones that come with the plugin, but you can create your own and add them to this list here. Then lastly, we've got the chat feature. Pretty obvious. Type something, send it, and it will appear as a speech bubble um, on the mini. And we have also dice roll requests. So dice roll requests, you can type in something like attack 1d20 plus 3. Was that not the format? Maybe no space. Yes, no space. So that will make the corresponding dice appear in Talespire for you to roll. If you happen to have the auto roll plugin, it will also roll that die for you automatically. So that's the roll dice. And the very last thing that the interface supports is roll results. So there was a request for a roll results where basically you make all of your rolls outside of Talespire, but you're able to post the results to Talespire so that it appears on the screen and also in the chat. So that is done through the chat by doing a /RR for roll result. Then you can give it a name. So attack, I believe it is a colon. And then whatever the roll was. So it was a 1d2 plus 3. And then in square brackets, you put the actual dice. So let's say I rolled a 13. And if I send that, you can see that it basically generates a Talespire notification. It also generated the corresponding entry. Come on. Looks like that for some reason it rolled it a few times. I'll have to look into that. But yes, you can see that we rolled the attack. 13 was what we actually rolled. It had a bonus of 3, so the total is 16. So this is a way that you can have your own application make rolls, but still post it up to Talespire for others to see or for it to be logged in the chat. So that's pretty well it. The only part that we kind of didn't discuss is this section right here, status. Anytime you make any of these requests, it basically sends out a message from the web application to the Talespire server, which processes that command. And this right here shows you exactly what is being sent out. For the average user, that is completely unimportant. Nobody cares about that. But if you are writing your own application that is going to interface with Talespire using this interface, um, maybe you're writing your own web server page or you're writing your own application, then this is very helpful because it will show you what messages are being sent to the interface so that you can use the same messages in your own application. And that's basically it. As you can see, all of the actions that we were doing were on the um, John Mini because we selected John. I can demonstrate that if I switch this to Jim and start moving around, it's now Jim that's being um, moved around. So you can access any mini in the game as long as you know the name. Yes, currently there are no preventions for selecting a mini that you shouldn't be touching. So, for example, in theory, you can use the remote to move around the bad guys, the GM's big boss, whatever. Similarly, there's no prevention from you moving around another player's mini. Um, that may be introduced in a later version, but at the moment, it's as long as you know the name, you can manipulate it. And that's about it.